Yeah.
Thank you for making time for this.
Yeah, no worries.
I just coming up to reInvent, my biggest thing that I missed from reInvent was, or that I will miss from reInvent is bumping into people. It's bumping into you,
Yeah.
into Ben and everybody else that I bump into around there, and sort of like going off and having a tea and having a coffee and having an ice cream and sort of chatting about what's going on. I'm really kind of concerned that that's the one thing that we're going to lose from this year. Unless we actually go the extra mile and make that effort to make sure it happens. So I'm going to try and do that.
No, I definitely agree with that. It's the single biggest reason I go to reInvent. The talks are great, but you can always watch them offline, and sometimes it's actually better to be consumed when you have time. Like Rick Houlihan's talk, I think I've watched I was in the audience for it, but I think I've watched it about 5 times offline to try and make sense of it. And I think some talks are actually better consumed offline, but it's the hallway track that's the absolute biggest value of reInvent for me personally. So I completely agree with that.
I want to see if they're going to do anything about it. Obviously, for the Hero program, they've introduced this idea that we all have virtual reality headsets, and that's great. That kind of works. But I'd be interested to see if there's other tools that they're going to put in place to help everybody interact. And interact with Amazonians as well. So like part of it, like the sessions are good, but then the workshops as well, where you actually get hands-on and actually get to talk to someone and say, how does this work? I'm kind of fingers crossed that there's some of that happening over the next couple of weeks. I don't know. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I've always also appreciated being able to kind of collar a product manager at a bar or, a breakfast or, get your friendly developer advocate, corner them and, ask all your questions when you have a chance.
Well, so, yes, that's the one good thing potentially about this year. And I don't want to spend all these conversations having conversations about how everything's different this year, but the one potentially good thing about this is that you kind of know where those people are. They're on the other end of a Slack or they're on the other end of an email, because they're not walking around Vegas and lost somewhere in the back of the Venetian and, oh, I don't know, someone says they saw them somewhere. You can kind of like find them. It's like the whole idea of seeing Jeff Barr just sat at home watching the keynote like everybody else. It's kind of strange. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, we're all going to be doing it. I don't know if I'm going to, so I normally live tweet the keynotes if I'm in the keynote hall. And I don't know if I'm going to do that this year because it's all online and everyone's online. Everyone's going to be watching. Anyone who's interested is going to be watching it. And I'm not going to be, time-wise, if you're physically in the keynote hall, you're seeing it before anyone else, and you can get a tweet out before someone actually sees something on a stream. I don't think there's any major advantage. I think Twitter will just be awash with people live tweeting the keynote. Amazon announces X and you'll have 20 people giving a variation of the same tweet.
You got Corey, of course. Yes, we both said that.
Do the snark meter, do the snark meter version, which I have been known to do from time to time. So I don't know, maybe I'll do the Corey Quinn.
So Jeff Barr said that he would be live blogging the Andy's speech. Do you think he's actually going to do that, or do you reckon he's just got a whole bunch of? He's already written it. He knows exactly what's in the speech. He's going to hit send. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, I reckon he's probably got at least 80% pre-prepared.
Yeah, he knows what's going on.
Yeah, I think what you might do is maybe bring in people's tweets and comments online. Reference and retweet other people and bring them in. But it's a live event, but it's not a live event in the respect that it's not unscripted. It's a scripted live event.
Yeah.
So you know what's coming. It's not a sports match.
Sure. I saw Andy actually sent out a tweet over the last few hours, I think it was, with he has like a printout of the slide deck, and it's like a stack of papers this big. Seems rather an antiquated way of doing it. I don't think I'd be able to leaf through that many pieces of paper, but it's obviously ready to go. I don't know. It's I mean, you would have been, I'm assuming you were asleep for the evening event that we just had.
Yeah. It was like 4 a.m. my time.
Yeah. No, it's probably not worth being awake for. I was in a meeting, so I couldn't be in there either. But obviously, I heard the announcement, and I managed to bring it up in the meeting halfway through because we had a break. So this notion of having Mac Minis, 2 instances, I don't know. It's, but my mind immediately races to all the kind of stupid things that I could do with it. But I'm keen to talk to someone who's actually got that use case, got that problem.
There's I think there's folks who need Macs for various reasons. Obviously, developers, Apple developers who are developing for the Apple ecosystem is a huge one. The interesting one is they announced as well that the M1 Mac Mini M1s will be coming in 2021. They're actively working on that. So that'll be good. I think that might drive a lot of use cases because there'll be a lot of developers looking to port their code. And then they might not necessarily want to re-platform the entire development team and buy them all new Macs to do so. So, you know, the Mac M1 Mac Mini might be quite a useful tool. The other interesting one, there's an agency in Leeds, a digital agency called Parallax. James, I'm trying to remember James's surname now. He's a lead at the agency. He was one of the first AWS community heroes. And he does this fantastic talk about how you use Mac Minis to kind of power a lot of what they do. A lot of what they do is digital signage.
Right.
And like immersive experiences. And James became an AWS hero because of a lot of the work he did for UEFA and David Guetta, where they did this interactive experience. There's all backed by a serverless infrastructure in AWS. I think where you could, I think you could create your own shoe or create your own song or something, and it was put up in, I want to say Adidas stores. I might have it wrong. Anyway, some sort of shoe store, and you could go and you have this experience. But it all was a Mac Mini with AWS in the back end, and they do loads of work. But he gives this whole talk about how the different digital signage solutions they built for various products, and they all ended up being powered by Mac Minis. You know, from the signage they put on a roadside that they didn't realize you've got to turn down the brightness at night, otherwise you blind people, and things like that. But it's all Mac Mini powered. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I could see Parallax folks saying, "Ooh, Mac Minis. We don't have to buy a ton of them for tested development now."
Yeah,
because those are the physical devices they put out.
Absolutely. I guess that's it. Right. Yeah, it's for the developer community. Nobody's going to be, now I can run my server infrastructure on Mac Minis, clearly. But but iOS developers who want to have basically compiling farms. The discussion that I was in very quickly after this announcement came out was, how can we include this into a build pipeline so that we can start to use that for rendering applications, for compiling applications. So I
wouldn't be surprised if Code Build supported it in an announcement soon. You know, if not at reInvent, I think within a month or so.
Sure.
You'd probably
or someone will figure out a way anyway, which wouldn't be that hard.
People
anyway,
will be hacking on it immediately anyway.
It's a good job they announced those M1 processor support is coming. Otherwise that would have been quite an anticlimax when it's like, we've just bought all of the world's Intel compatible Intel powered Mac Minis, just as the stores don't stock them anymore. But there are going to be a whole load of people out there with their tool chains still in the Intel ecosystem.
Have you bought yourself a M1 yet?
Not yet, no. No. I'd like to, because I do a lot of stuff with Final Cut and stuff, so I can see that I can see the gains I could get there. But I don't know. I'm kind of keen to wait to see what happens first quarter of next year, whether a MacBook Pro comes out with maybe a couple of extra ports on it, for example, because I do actually use the ports on this machine I've got here. So that kind of thing, and this new MacBook Pro seems to be a slightly bigger version of the Air, right? So I can see us in this family getting an Air, because they're quite powerful machines now, and we've got a machine that could do with a refresh. But me, I think I might wait. What about yourself?
I'm heavily debating it. I think my biggest issue is what runtime support you have, because I'm still using my machine for day-to-day developments. Docker support wasn't there on launch, but it looks like the Docker team are pretty close to getting it there.
Sure.
And some of the language support's definitely improving. So it could. I think I'm going to evaluate it quite hard in the new year, because I do need to refresh my machine. I've got a 4-year-old MacBook Pro I've been lugging around.
4-year-old, is that the touch bar? Has that got a touch bar? Is that?
So it's from the touch bar generation, but I
Right,
got one without a touch bar. So
oh,
it's like,
right,
I
okay.
don't want that touch bar.
Yeah,
And now that the fact that you've got a physical escape key and a fingerprint sensor, and you still have the touch bar. So, you know, F1 to F12, I don't really use that much. You know, your volume going up and down, and that's about it really, and maybe changing brightness. But
I don't mind the touch bar.
yeah, I'm not too stressed about it, but yeah, it's from that generation. It's gone really well. It does 90% of what I want to do. If I want to do any video editing, it's a dog. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty good. But I do need to refresh it. You have occasional issues. I think I'm onto my third power supply with it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think I want to be a little bit further on than the support is getting there. So, like, you know, I'd like it to be bashed on for a couple of months at least before I'm going to make that jump, I think. But
yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to bring out a desktop CPU, because you got the M1 and they're going to go like the D1 or something like that.
Yeah,
a desktop version, and then or a P1 Power. No, that Power is the old IBM, but yeah, a P1 Pro. Don't know,
yes,
like that.
I mean, whether the whatever the letter is, I'm wondering what is going to happen next year. Something's got to happen next year. I mean, key night people that I'm hanging around with are noticing how there's no what is it, space gray Mac Mini, which is their major complaint, which obviously means they're not really looking in the right place. But it does suggest that obviously something else is going to come out. And I know they've seen some spare parts catalogs items for 10 gig Ethernet on Mac Minis as well, which isn't currently available. So there's definitely stuff coming out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think maybe April next year, we'll see. Yeah, I think Apple's been on a tear with its product announcements this year. So I'm wondering what we're going to see today from Amazon. Yeah, like, because companies have, I think because of the pandemic and everyone being locked at home, there's actually been heightened productivity. I think definitely like Apple has been more productive than they've been in a long, long while. I'm wondering if that same effect is going to cross over to Amazon. You know, are we going to see 100 announcements?
That's interesting. So that would suggest for that reason then that the service announcements might be concentrated at those higher tiers, the software tiers, the products on top of infrastructure. So less that we're going to see new silicon being rolled out into data centers and stuff, maybe. Yeah, that would be interesting. So last year, I remember you being present in a conversation that was being had where it was a little bit sort of, I guess the topic of the conversation was, where's all the serverless stuff?
Yeah.
Because last year there basically was nothing. I think in the keynote, I don't think they even mentioned.
Not in the keynotes, no.
So are you expecting, are you wishing, are you hoping for that to be redressed this year? You expect that
it's weird. So I've been writing a small series of blogs about like reInvent Revisited. I've just been looking at previous reInvents, and I've got a blog post coming out today around Lambda, the Lambda announcement. But I'm looking at the major serverless announcements actually haven't happened in keynotes. Haven't happened at reInvent. I think like API Gateway was at the US Summit. Event Bridge was at the US Summit. AppSync didn't even make a keynote. You know, so
yeah, step functions. I remember when step functions came out. That was pre-reInvent, I think.
Yeah. So it's AWS. I don't know why, but they've got a history of their bigger products, the bigger serverless products outside of Lambda, not being announced at keynotes. What typically happens around this time is you get incremental improvements, some of which are quite good. It's typically incremental improvements. And what the Lambda team has been focusing on for quite a while is just removing blockers to using Lambda. You know, so every time someone says, you know, I've got a problem with this, they'll focus on that little issue. And then, okay, we'll increase, you know, the addressable market by 5% by doing that, because these are the people who are blocked by not having feature X. I think we're going to see more of that, and because that's what they've been doing for the last 2-3 years. That's my expectation on the Lambda front. But obviously, serverless is more than just Lambda is kind of the glue that holds it all together, but it's more than just that. So I'm not too sure what we'll see outside of that. Like, I'd like to see fully serverless Elasticsearch, for example, you know, instead of, you know, instance based pay per hour type thing that we've got today, you know. But that would be nice. Will we see that? I don't know. So, and then if they announce something like that, would it make a keynote? Maybe it would be like one of a series of announcements.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know. Those keynotes are pretty long. You have to try to think what on earth they're going to be talking about. I suppose a lot of Andy's keynote anyway is about you know, what last year has been about and what it's been for them, and what you know, an update on what's happened. And I guess it's going to be interesting to see their focus. Clearly there's going to be lots of COVID talk, and the world's changed, and the world's, you know, from a technology point of view, this is all the wins that we've made. But yeah, so I don't know. I suppose I'm prepped for something exciting. I think we need something exciting after the year we've had. So come and cheer us all up.
Yeah, we'll see. The Amazon development cycle is quite long though. That's like if they launch a fully new product, that's going to be really exciting. That's like 2 to 3 year. You know, maybe they'd be able to push something earlier than they would have before.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah. So we've got a machine learning keynote this year for the first time. So that's kind of interesting. And I do think that there are some stuff in the software level, algorithm level, pre-built model level, which I think probably has been in the works for this year. So it'd be interesting to see if they come out with, I mean, they're essentially serverless, aren't they? We're talking, you know, those services, API level services. I don't know if they get labeled as serverless in general conversation, but they probably should be. Things like recognition.
Yeah, the word serverless ends up meaning lots of things. So it ends up meaning nothing in the end. It's a bit of a strange one. A lot of, you see within AWS, typically only the folks in the Lambda ecosystem start to refer to things as serverless. And then you've got, and even outside of the AWS's ecosystem, I've seen a lot of businesses, if they were launched 2 years ago, would have called themselves serverless, but they're not calling themselves now. They're being more focused on exactly what they do rather than, oh, we're serverless, because it does mean everything, you know, instead of saying, you know, we're a serverless, you know, say, for example, serverless image extraction service, we'll just say we're an image extraction service or whatever, image identification classification service. So we'll see. The one interesting announcement I've seen out of the Lambda team was extended instruction support on the Intel CPUs. So is it AXV2 instruction support? But basically what it means is it's better support for mathematical operations on Intel based. All the Lambda is still on the Intel. They haven't moved across to ARM yet, so on Intel CPUs. So you're seeing, what the interesting thing about that for me is obviously all machine learning workloads become a lot more effective on, you know, there's no GPU support in Lambda today. Hopefully maybe that's something that's coming. But if you're doing particularly inference type work, Lambda now becomes a really useful target for that, because the performance is like 2x, if not more. So if you're running TensorFlow and Python, you know, so EFS was announced a little while ago, so you can get around the Lambda size limitation of your code base, because that was one of the big issues running Python in Lambda. You can get around that now. You've got better performance.
So with Lambdas, you've got Lambdas, you've got layers, which have been around for ages. You've got extensions now on top of that as well, which could that help?
Extensions will replace layers for a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah, so the folks who are using layers to run a custom runtime, extensions won't change that. The folks who are using layers to overlay monitoring tooling, for example, that's quite a common pattern. All the monitoring tooling vendors had their own custom layers, which they had embedded their monitoring tooling into. Now that goes away and they use extensions for that instead. So because extensions is a better abstraction, and also if you put a layer in, the monitoring tooling provider kind of becomes responsible for that. And AWS, the SLA doesn't really count so much if it's on a layer, it's just essentially a custom runtime. Now, if it's an extension, it's still an AWS managed runtime. So your SLA now still counts because the runtime is still managed by AWS, and it's just extensions around that. You know, these different lifecycle hooks they can hook into to get events out of.
Yeah, sure.
That becomes, so it decreases the monitoring provider domain, what they have to worry about. And it's a better model for that use case.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see Lambda's growing up. It's yeah, it's getting, I don't know. Is it fair to say it's enterprise ready? It's not really fair to say that because it's always been that, but yeah, it's showing that it can do the same things for someone who's an enterprise architect who says, "Oh, no, we can't do that because it doesn't do this, this, and then this."
Yeah.
I guess Lambda's now showing that it can.
Yeah, definitely. It's doing all of that, and it's going to, like I said, there's all these small incremental improvements. I think one of the challenges that Lambda team have, though, is with every little new feature they've added, like they're adding a new knob or button on the dashboard to control Lambda, so to speak. So it becomes more complex. So it becomes a harder thing for new developers to understand.
Yes.
So there's this trade-off. It's like big enterprises, we all needed to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, you know, all these things. But the more you add to it, the harder it becomes for new developers to understand. So I think what we'll start to see accelerating is all these businesses that have built themselves on top of Lambda. So like Vercel or Begin, which are startups that provide hosting environments, all built on top of Lambda. I think you'll start to see the core Lambda product only really being used by big shops, where the smaller developers will start to go to more opinionated providers that build on top of Lambda. You know, they take those 40 different options you have and give you 3 or 4. You know, and
it's a really important point for especially us who've been involved with this stuff for quite a long time to remember that we grew up with Lambda. So we saw it when it was really simple. We saw it get all these little tiny things get incrementally added. And so it feels okay. But somebody who's now brand new being dropped into this is their very first reInvent. They only really came into AWS this year because something happened. And they're sort of like, bang, here's Lambda with all of its options and all of its features. Yeah, it's a totally different experience for them. And it's something that I need to keep checking myself on for the whole of AWS stack. I mean, the first time that both of us probably looked at the AWS console and all of the service list was that long. You know, it didn't have that many things on it. And it's only going to get longer over the next couple of weeks.
It's going to be crazy. It applies for all of AWS. Like, if you're coming into AWS now, you know, it's an incredibly daunting thing to do. You know, like I said, that service list was that long. I'm thinking when I got my AWS Solution Architect certification in 2015, it's like it was a pretty simple thing to do at that point because there wasn't that much to know.
Yeah, you could be across all of it, really. At a reasonable level, you could be across all of it. And I think the thing to say now is that you just can't. There are services honestly that I've barely heard of, and there are certainly services that I've not used. And that's okay. That's okay.
So you're telling me you haven't turned on Ground Station?
Oh, you don't want to know how much I've been Googling about. Really? Actually, satellites aren't as expensive as I thought they were. We could do this.
Have you seen the Project Caper?
No.
That's their satellites project from Amazon.
Right.
It's coming out. They're launching 3,200 satellites.
Oh, right. Is this a Starlink type thing?
Yes, like Amazon Starlink thing, and it's an Amazon project, but I'm pretty sure Ground Station is going to be part of that. You know, maybe to the extent that Ground Station was maybe built for this. So I think it would be interesting to see what capabilities Amazon and AWS launch off the top of that. You know, it completely will drive down the unit economics of using satellites significantly.
No, I always just had in my mind that setting up a satellite, I'd have to call Elon and get it put on one of these massive rockets. I didn't really appreciate properly that actually there's smaller rockets going up all the time, and you can just put those little cubes of electronics up, and it's not as expensive as you might think. It's very distracting. I shouldn't be thinking this. I don't need to be adding to the space junk problem with like my Hello World satellite that's orbiting the planet. Oh, dear.
Minor details. Just do it.
All right. So, anything in particular you're looking forward to in reInvent that we haven't talked about already? Are you banking on something being delivered? I'm not. I've given up doing this. It's very unfair for me to ask you. There's no point in guessing.
I don't. Yeah, it's strange because we're both heroes and we get pre-reInvent briefings, so we do have a view of what's coming down the line. But the other side of that is nothing's ever guaranteed. I remember last year we were told a bunch of stuff was going to be released, and it wasn't. And stuff, and literally we were told 2 weeks before reInvent, this XYZ was all going to be released, and then it wasn't released. And the reason for not being released, I think, I don't know what the reason was, but I assume it wasn't ready. And that stuff got released about 3 months later. But like, even if you know what in theory is going to be announced, it doesn't guarantee you know. And there'll still be stuff that no one gets told outside of the product team who owns that.
Sure.
So the stuff that, like, you know, literally Andy Jassy, Jeff Barr, and Werner Vogels, and the product team who built new product know about. Yes. And that's about it. You know,
it's like
so there's that kind of stuff which
nobody knew about. Snowmobile. How did they keep that secret? But
yeah. So I don't know. I think we're going to see increased support for AWS services on Outpost.
Right.
I think we're going to. I think we see a lot more of that. Like more of the service catalog is going to happen on Outpost. I think I'd like to see more functionality in CloudFront. I don't think it's had any major announcements since Lambda at Edge, and Lambda at Edge hasn't had any major upgrades. So I'd like to see more on the Edge happening.
Right.
So I'd like to see some announcements around that personally.
These are all very sensible things you're hoping for.
I'm trying to think what else.
Oh, you've frozen on me. Hello. I can still hear you though. And now I can.
AWS ecosystem.
Oh, there we go. You froze.
We're back.
And you're back.
I'm back. Yeah.
I was just saying how these are all very sensible things you're wishing for.
Yeah.
Which is good. I'm good on you. See, I'm sat here thinking,
what's the moonshot?
AR, VR, AR. Yeah. Like, what's the toy going to be? What's the toy going to be this year? Yeah. We've had a toy every year. What's the toy going to be? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there won't be one.
Amazon Glass or something.
Sure.
But that might be a consumer product Amazon launches.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
but maybe bits and pieces about AR.
Yeah. Maybe I think if they put inference on the edge, you know, put inference chips into CloudFront, essentially, that could be super interesting.
Yeah, okay.
Because then you could do more interesting AR, VR stuff close to the edge where you've got a sub 10 millisecond latency to your end user.
Yeah. Yes. So more powerful thing, lower power consumer devices doing more interesting things with really fast stuff in the cloud. Yeah. Yeah. And that stuff, closer to your user. That could be super interesting. We know they've got the tech. You know, maybe there will be a big chip announcement. Gravitron 2 was last year, you know, maybe be a Gravitron 3 or maybe a new inference chip or something like that. 2, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's super low power. So yeah, I think maybe it might not be rolled out because it's the other thing, they can announce something, roll it out 11 months later.
Sure,
sometimes more than that. I think TimeStream DB only went GA a month ago or something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, so they might announce something like that. So yeah, I think I think inference on the edge could open up a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, all right.
That could be super interesting.
I like that because that's sensible but also exciting. So I'll let you have that.
Yeah. There is if you wanted to take it to the next level, if they integrated with Amazon Sidewalk. So have you seen Amazon? Have you heard about Amazon Sidewalk?
No. I'm just gonna, I was considering pretending that I had, but no.
So it's a mesh network that's been built by Amazon. Well, built by Amazon, built by Amazon consumers in the US. So if you buy an Amazon device, an Echo or a Ring doorbell or whatever,
Amazon device, yes. No, I have heard of this. Yes, because I got a notification for my Echo devices, which I haven't muted, so I'll avoid saying the name, saying, yes, do you want to enable this? It sort of seemed to suggest that it was an opt-out thing, but I went to look and mine thing was already turned off.
Yeah, so it has to be a US, so only doing in the US. So if your device is registered on a US email address, you would have gotten notifications about it, but it needs to be in the US to work.
Right.
Okay. But essentially, they're going to create a big mesh network of all Amazon devices around the world. So in theory, if your internet goes down at home and your neighbors have Amazon devices and their internet's up, it'll still be able to communicate out via that route, which is creepy and scary, but also useful if someone's breaking into your house.
Sure, okay.
Nice. But I'm wondering if they're going to do some sort of integration with that. The other thing I've always wondered is they're putting these now more and more powerful consumer devices into people's homes. And all the new stuff has got inference on the device as well now. All the latest echoes, they're no longer going back to the cloud to figure out what you're saying.
Sure.
Which is what they were doing previously.
Right.
That's your inference at the edge is, you're letting the consumers build it out for you.
Right. Oh, decentralized cloud, actually pushing out to consumer devices. I don't know, man. Yeah.
I'm wondering if they'll go that far. I think knowing how Amazon works as a business, I doubt it, because to get the bit that makes echoes to talk to some product unit in the cloud will be close to nigh on impossible.
But the technology, it's getting the teams to talk to each other.
yeah, it's a human problem, not a technology problem.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I think that's probably one. Yeah, that's an out there thing. Maybe we can assume that somebody in a break room somewhere has had that discussion, but we'll see whether that's one step too far.
You have SVPs fighting.
Oh man, hello.
Stop making faces. I lost you. There we go.
We're back. I think Zoom's trying to tell us something. I was saying, cool. Thank you for finding the time to bump into me in the hallway, but I didn't ask you what hallway we bumped into each other in. Are we in Vegas, or are we somewhere else in the world?
Let's go somewhere else in the world. Talk about the last time I bumped into you was on Carnaby Street in London.
It was, wasn't it? I was there with my son, weren't we? We were just randomly walking around London. It was like, hey, you were buying shoes.
As you do. Yes, I was buying shoes. Well, I was trying to buy shoes. I failed.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's good. Yeah, that was last time I saw you. So
that's right.
I think, was it February? I
think it was like that. Yeah. So I was still on my way home from. Well, I was on my travels since the last reInvent. So from reInvent, I've carried on to Europe. Went around there before coming back here. So that was. I think, were you going to watch the Harry Potter show? I think. I did do that. Yes. I did do that. Yes. That was a lot of fun.
I remember that.
And that was in another time. That was another time.
Another time.
Doesn't that feel like such a long time ago?
Yeah, March was the longest month on record. It's still March technically. So
yeah,
and that was in February. So that was
well, it wasn't too long until we left, and we only really just got back to Australia in time. It was before we wouldn't have been able to get back at all. So yeah. Oh, all right. Well, we're safe now. Hopefully, cool. Stay safe, and safe. I'll see you around and about for the. No, well, that's right. You're in lockdown again, aren't you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. We're going to come out of lockdown on Thursday, so in 2 days' time.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll go to tier 2. Yay! Exciting times.
Cool.
I think I can see one more person. Something like that. I don't know.
All righty.
Cool.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you around reInvent.
Yeah, I'll see you around reInvent.
Cheers.
Just bye.